Hello, and welcome to the Command Center. It is Command Center, episode 7 with Joseph Henry, your host. Hope that everybody is having a good one. I know it's been a little bit, we said we were going to do an episode a week. I know this is the 8th day. I wanted to get the episode out yesterday, but it's just been absolutely hectic. It's been a tough week for me going back to school, dealing with a lot of different things. So, but just wanted to get this episode out and really just talk about it because it's a big day. Today is Saturday, September 9th. Tomorrow, the Commanders play their first game of the season, so very exciting. A lot of fun stuff to discuss and talk about, but hope everybody's had a good week. For anybody that's going back to school, I know I have. It's been a little bit rough for me, but hope that everybody else is having a good one. So, still trying to figure out the best way to set up the mic so that it gets everything I'm talking about, but it does cover my face a bit. But I think this is pretty good so far. But yeah, a lot to talk about for the Commanders. Mostly going to spend this episode just previewing their matchup with the Cardinals for tomorrow. Absolutely massive matchup. Got to come out and start the season with a win given how hard the schedule is. Also going to give my Commanders season prediction. Going to walk through the schedule and get that. So let's just dive right into it. Going to try to get through this all. So first off, Command the news. So let's see what's going on with some Commanders news lately. So some big moves. So wide receiver Dax Milne, who kind of fought for a roster spot, has suffered a groin injury and is placed on the IR. So he's going to be down for a little bit. And then we signed Jamison Crowder, Washington legend. He was on the Redskins at the time, was very productive. Then he signed with the Jets. Then he was briefly on the Bills, signed with the Giants in March, and then got cut a few weeks ago. And now he's back on the practice squad, and then he was actually elevated today with a Dax Milne injury, and now he will be probably playing in our matchup with the Cardinals. So great to have him back. Can't imagine he's going to get a whole lot of action because he's very new and probably doesn't know the playbook at all yet. So, but just nice to have him back on the roster, a real legend and one of the better receivers that Washington has had when you look around. And guys like Terry McLaurin obviously are amazing, but before Terry McLaurin, guys like Jamison Crowder and Santana Moss were really the talk of the town. Also, some he dealt with some injuries after Buffalo and struggled, couldn't really stay on the field, but hoping that for a little bit of money he can be a productive player for Washington. So then next up, some really bad news. We talked about this in the last episode. Was never sure what Chase Young's status was going to be for Week 1. He's very injury prone at this point. It seems like they're very cautious with him. So Chase Young was cleared by doctors. So he wasn't practicing with contact, but he was still out there. And it seemed like all signs were pointing towards him playing. But he was cleared by doctors today and then announced as out. So basically what happened is he's allowed to play. Like, he's physically all good. But Washington is saying we haven't seen him practice with contact early on. Like, we haven't seen him get into contact practice lately, so we want to make sure we can ramp him up before we throw him in a game. So he's not playing against the Cardinals tomorrow. He might not play the next week, but most likely going to be out there for Week 3 against Buffalo. So disappointing, very disappointing with Chase Young. Not much else to say about it at this point. Like, just hoping and praying that he can stay healthy for his physical well-being and also for as a player, because he's dealt with so many injuries. And listen, I get it, right? They don't want to put him out there tomorrow and then have something tweak up. But at the end of the day, he's just so injury prone. You can't get mad at it. It's really shaping up like he's going to be a bust, and it's just extremely, extremely disappointing. So would have loved to see him out there, but, we'll see how it goes. At the time, everybody thought he was an amazing draft choice and a beast. He won Defensive Rookie of the Year, so hopefully he can get healthy and get back to that point. And, just hope this is a good season for him, because if not, it feels like it'll be the last time we see him in burgundy and gold. Terry McLaurin, all good. He's been practicing the past few days. He had some injury concerns with the turf toe, but he's good to go. Love how sturdy Terry is, always playing, always healthy. Really amazing stuff. And then for the Cardinals on some injury things, one of their backup tackles, Kelvin Beachum, is going to be out for the game. Hollywood Brown and Zach Ertz are both questionable, so hopefully they play and give it a more even matchup. But, yeah, that's it for the Cardinals injuries, just those three. Everybody else was pretty healthy. Also, Big game tomorrow for DC and all these Washington fans. I mean, you look at it top to bottom, like the excitement is there. It's palpable. It's in the air. So much going on that people are just hyped out of their minds about. And, because Dan Snyder is gone, we're getting a lot of those veterans back who wouldn't come to games. So, like, Champ Bailey's coming tomorrow. John Riggins, who formerly had wanted nothing to do with Washington at all. RG3 is coming. Listen, I got mixed emotions on RG3. I think RG3 is an interesting guy. I remember a few years ago he announced his book Surviving Washington that was going to be released and then was quickly canceled after he announced it because that would have started all types of issues. And now he's like a Washington savior and stuff like that. So I don't love RG3 that much. I think he's a fun, likable guy. But in terms of Washington, it's a weird history there. I mean, he's being treated like he's like an all-time great, but he was just a bust. And I don't know. It's weird to me. I don't like this whole hating on Washington. And then, listen, Dan Snyder was an awful person, awful owner, right? But RG3 was so quick to hate on Washington. And then the second they changed ownership, he loves the football team again. So I don't understand how you could be hating on the same players in the past and now you love them just because the ownership changed. I don't know. I get annoyed about that. But, RG3 will be back in DC, so that's always fun. $40 million has been brought in to make upgrades to FedEx Field thanks to Josh Harris. So very interesting stuff. Obviously any fans who have been attending games know that there are some issues there with the stadium, but that's going to get all taken care of thanks to this $40 million that Josh Harris is putting in. And then also Josh Harris had some quotes the past 2 days getting ready for week 1. Just talking about how exciting it is and how the sellout and how much crowd they're anticipating and all this different stuff. But he also did note, they were asked about Ron Rivera, and he said, listen, I love Ron. He's a good guy. I love what he's done for the team, but he's got to deliver wins on the field. And then, it's really going to be the main factor in deciding how much longer he's the coach here. And listen, that's a great point, right? Ron has to start getting wins on the field. I mean, everything has been so off the field focused these past few years that it feels like now the main focus is just you got to win games and you got to make this team a playoff team. Now, it's going to be difficult with this schedule, but the main focus right now, in the past, it's been on everything else. This season, it's just about football. Ron, you have to deliver. You got a great roster. You picked your quarterback. You picked these players. You got to deliver. He's had his hands on the roster in the offseason for a few years in a row now, so he's got to make something happen. So we'll see how it goes for Ron, but very interesting stuff. Should be a fascinating week 1 matchup. So we'll dive into some discussion in the next segment right now, previewing this matchup. And welcome back here to the Command Center for segment 2 of this episode. I had to take off the hat, turn my head a little bit, also turn the AC on. It was heating up in here. It wasn't good for health, safety, whatever was going on. Way too hot in New Jersey right now. It's like in the 90s. This temperature. But back in segment 2, I hope that you guys can still hear well with the AC. I did some mic tests. I think it's fine, but we'll wait and see. So anyway, massive matchup this Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals. First game of the season, first game of the Eric Bieniemy era, first game of the Sam Howell is the undisputed starter era. So we got to see what can the Commanders do to get the win here today. And the first thing that stands out to me is control the line of scrimmage, right? When you look at this Cardinals team, so much of what they've done is sold pieces, right? They've gotten rid of DeAndre Hopkins. They've gotten rid of, blanking on his name right now. Giants just traded for him. Isaiah Simmons. I knew I was just forgetting it. Ugh, I hate when that happens. Anyway, yeah, they trade away Isaiah Simmons, a huge player. Their roster is just depleted. They've got so many injuries. I mean, they were starting Josh Dobbs at quarterback. They got rid of Colt McCoy. They traded for Josh Dobbs like 2 weeks ago from the Cleveland Browns. So, listen, but a lot of their strengths come on the offensive line, right? So the Cardinals this year drafted Paris Johnson Jr. to be their starting right tackle. He was a very high pick. He was a fantastic player at Ohio State. They've got Will Hernandez at right guard, who's a pretty productive guard, not one of the top in the league. But then center, left guard, and left tackle are a little bit weak. DJ Humphries is their left tackle. He's solid. But then Elijah Wilkinson, and then I don't even know how to say their center's name, Hajalte Froholt. These guys aren't that good from what I've heard or researched about. So I feel like if Washington can really get to the quarterback, get to the running back. They have to dominate to start off, right? You have to force the Arizona Cardinals and Joshua Dobbs to throw at you, because then this new and improved secondary, Kendall Fuller, Emmanuel Forbes, I'm blanking on everybody's names right now. It's just one of those days. I'm sorry, folks. Derek Forrest, Cam Curl, like these guys can just wreak havoc. And the linebacking core, Jermaine Davis, Cody Barton, they can have their way. So the defensive line has to match up well with this Cardinals offensive line, and then vice versa as well. I mean, you look at it, right? This Cardinals defensive line is pretty weak. So they've got L.J. Collier as their right defensive end. Then their defensive tackles, Lecky Fotu, other defensive tackle, Jonathan Ledbetter, and then their left defensive end, this one's a shocker, Zaven Collins, who they drafted 2 drafts ago to be their off-ball linebacker, is now playing defensive end. So not really sure how that works. He was a middle linebacker last season. So Washington has to be able to get through the Cardinals' offensive line and then also protect their own quarterback against this defensive line, which is pretty weak. So the game starts and ends at the line of scrimmage. If Washington can control the line of scrimmage and run the ball well and protect Sam Howell, I think they have a really good shot again to win here. They also have to be able to get to the quarterback. Chase Young's not going to be playing, so it's going to be Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, Ron Payne, and then maybe guys like Andre Jones. I know James Smith-Williams is questionable for the game. F.A. Obata's on the IR. Chase Young's out, so we're going to have to see how it plays out. Also, second key, start fast with Howell and Eric Bieniemy. It's pretty simple, folks. This is the beginning of a new era. New ownership, stadium's going to be crowded, packed. They have to be able to get this offense going. We've seen in their preseason games with the first-team offense, it takes a while before Sam Howell and the offense start establishing that flow that we've seen from them, right? It takes them about 2 or 3 drives. You can't have this in a regular season NFL game, especially against a team like the Cardinals. If you look at the schedule, people, which we're going to do after this segment, you will see that this is the toughest opponent. The easiest opponent that they will play all season long. This Cardinals team is not meant to win real NFL games. It feels like they're almost tanking or just waiting until Kyler Murray gets back to really start taking the season seriously. They have to start fast, and they have to score a lot of points, and they can't get lost in their rhythms. And then the third point is, listen, pile it on. Take chances, take risks. I don't know how much to say this, but my expectation for this game is that Washington will beat the Cardinals in a blowout. I think this Washington team is one of the best that we've seen in the past few years from Washington. That being said, the schedule is extremely, extremely difficult, so I don't have them winning a lot of games. Washington has to come out with their heads on fire. What I'm kind of hoping for type performance is, do you remember a few seasons ago, the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson? I think it was the first time Lamar was a starter. It was after they got rid of Joe Flacco. They played the Miami Dolphins, and they won like 53-6. Like, Washington obviously won't do that because they're Washington, but they have to come out. They have to have all the momentum, the Josh Harris ownership group, the Magic Johnson, Sam Howell, Eric Bieniemy, Terry McLaurin. They have to come out, and they just have to wreak havoc. They have to score a lot. They have to get sacks. They have to just pile it on over and over. They got to go for it on 4th downs. They got to take chances. This has to be an easy, establishing, dominating win. The only way this season can be more than I expect is if they come out and dominate, right? Because if this is a close win, or even, I hope not, but a loss, season's over. Because this is the easiest opponent you're going to play all season. After this, we're going to Denver to play the Broncos with Sean Payton. Sean Payton's going to have this team playing really good football. Then it's Buffalo. Then it's Philly. It's a rough schedule, man. So we got to come out and dominate, and we got to pile it on, and we got to score a lot. I think Washington's going to win. Give me a final score prediction of 28-6, 28-10, something like that. I don't think Washington's going to pile it on like they need to, but I think they're going to score a lot of points and win this one comfortably. If that doesn't happen, then I'm going to be extremely worried about this team. But yeah, got to control the line of scrimmage, force the Cardinals to throw at you with Joshua Dobbs against this elite Washington secondary. Washington's pass rush has to get home, their offensive line has to protect, and they got to be able to score points, and they got to be in good communication with Eric Bieniemy. I'm expecting a big win, 28-6, 28-7, something like that. Book it now. But yeah, should be a good one. Now, let's go over regular season schedule predictions. And welcome back here to the Command Center. So right here, Got my schedule predictions for the Commanders. A very, very tough schedule. Last season went 8-1 at a time. We were 7-5, I believe, with a great chance to make the playoffs, but we messed it up. Ended up finishing 1-3-1, and finished the season 8-1. But it was such an easy schedule compared to this season. I want to preface my schedule prediction by saying I think that this year Washington will play some of the best football that they've played. Absolutely in the Ron Rivera era, but I think dating back to the Jay Gruden era, I think it's going to be one of the best seasons that they've had purely playing the game. I think it's going to be one of the best seasons they've had. That being said, the schedule is so difficult, I don't see that many wins when you look at the grand scheme of things. I don't think they're going to be a 10-win team, but let's take a look at it and we'll see what happens. Playoffs maybe, but it's a very, very tough schedule. So week 1 at home against the Cardinals, I have that as a win. Washington starts off the season 1-0. Then week 2, they travel to Denver, 4 o'clock game. Sean Payton has taken over. I think that team's going to be playing really well. A lot of play action, a lot of tight end sets. He's got a lot of great talents there, and Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. So a lot of promise with that team. So I'm going to have that as a loss, 1-1. Then week 3, Buffalo's coming to FedEx Field. I'm going to have that as a loss. I think Josh Allen's going to really clean up his game this season and kind of go on an MVP breakout type route. So I'm going to have that as 1-2 for the Commanders. Then week 4 at Philly, loss, 1-4. I'm sorry, 1-3. Philly just too good. Just better roster, top to bottom, more talent, more proven players. That offensive line is just veteran, proven, amazing. Week 5 versus Chicago, I'm going to have that as a win. So Washington back to 2-3. Then week 6 at Atlanta. I think Atlanta is going to be a highly upgraded, fire-powered offense, but I think their defense is going to be weak. I have Washington winning that in quite a shootout. Going to be 3-3 there. Then week 7 at New York. I'm going to have that as a loss, 3-4. Then week 8 versus Philly. Another loss, Washington to 3-5. And now you get to this point of the season where we see this every season now. Washington wins game 1, and then they go on a losing streak. And then they're kind of and then they start to take off a bit. So here's where I really have the real gritty, classic Washington thing picking up. So a little bit of a hot take, but I think Washington's going to go into New England in week 9 and get the win there, moving to 4-5. I think this New England team is one of the weakest we've seen in the past few seasons. No weapons for Mac Jones. Offensive line is very weak. Defense doesn't have a lot of star power, so 4-5. Then also going to go to Seattle. I think that's going to be a win. I think the Seattle team matches up pretty well with Washington. I think Washington's got the guys to cover their secondary and can stop the run pretty well, and I think that Washington can take advantage of a young, kind of weak defensive Seattle line. Then I'm going to have them winning against New York, 6-5. So things are starting to pick up here in week 11. And then week 12 at Dallas on Thanksgiving. All the lights are on. I'm going to have Washington losing that matchup. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be highly contested. But I think Dallas is just too good and too many years ahead of Washington with this roster. So I think that's going to be a loss. So Washington will be 6-6. And then week 13 versus Miami. Miami coming on the road to D.C. in December. They're built for speed. And I don't think that's going to work too well at FedEx in December. I know J.P. Finley brought up a fantastic point saying that exact same thing. So Washington, I'm going to have that winning 7-6. So then you go to the bye week, and then you go to L.A. in week 15. I'm going to have them winning that 8-6. Things are looking up, but some tough matchups back-to-back. Week 16 against the New York Jets on Christmas Eve, I'm going to have that as a loss, 8-7. Then week 17 versus San Francisco, I'm going to have that as a loss, 8-8. So then, same situation as last year, 8-8 going into week 18. Well, not last year, they were 7-8-1 going into week 18. But Washington plays Dallas, last game of the season. It's funny, I have the same situation as J.P. Finley, but I think it just makes the most sense. Like, this Washington team, everybody seems to think is going to play really, really well, but the schedule is just so difficult, and the players for the teams they're playing against are just so unbelievably good. It's just hard to see a lot of wins. But week 18, Game against Dallas, going to be flexed to Sunday Night Football. Washington with a chance to make the playoffs. Going to depend on how some other teams play out. I'm going to have Washington winning that to 9-8, and then we'll see how the rest of the NFC playoff picture falls. But I think they have a chance to go to the playoffs at 9-8. But maybe, most likely not. But still, a really good season. Maybe gets Ron one more year. Absolutely, Eric Bieniemy was a success. And I think that Sam Howell will prove himself as the franchise quarterback. So that is my official Washington record prediction. 9-8. Book it now. Playoffs, questionable. I would say probably not. But I think it's going to be a good season. I think it's going to be fun. I'm just excited to see a competent offense. Like, I don't see a whole lot of wins, but, who knows? Washington could mess around and surprise people. There's so many games here that could be swing games. Like, if Buffalo gets sloppy, that could be a win. One of these Philly games, that could be a win. San Francisco, the Jets, who knows? Like, injuries. You can never tell with the NFL season, but I think this is a pretty good record set to see how they play it. Listen, at the end of the day, we talked about this in Command Center episode 1. It's been 7 episodes since the start of the regular season. It's all about the offense. Sam Howell, Eric Bieniemy, what can these guys do? We know what the defense is going to be, but can that defense take that next step? That's what it's about. You have the fans back. You have the alumni back. Josh Harris is in. FedEx Field is bumping. Magic Johnson is talking to the players. The season is right here for the taking, and what are the Commanders going to do about it? We will find out tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I can't wait. I know you guys can't wait either. The Washington Commanders, your Washington Commanders, are so close to the start of the season. Let's get excited, folks. I think they're going to have a big win against the Arizona Cardinals, and if not, season's going to be a disaster. But we'll see. Hope you guys are having a good one. It was a lot of fun talking Commanders with you. I've had a tough week, so nice to just relax and focus on this for a bit. But hope everybody's good. Love you all. Thanks for liking, subscribing, commenting, whatever. Just enjoying the content. I really appreciate it. But yes, Commanders, who's excited? We'll have a video up soon discussing their game tomorrow. Hopefully discussing a nice big win with Sam Howell at the helm. So yes, have a good one. Live from the Command Center, this is Joseph Henry. Have a good one.